Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for appearing. My questions will be really asked of Professor Braun, and thank you for your testimony. I agree with your 3 points. You talked about a permanent presence, you talked about a qualitative approach, and you talked about allies working with them to build up strength in the region. I was recently up in Inuvik and Iqaluit just this last summer, and I guess my question, and I'll do a little bit of preamble first before I get your answer, is, liberal hot air really won't cut it anymore. It's been 7 years. We're still seeing a huge lack of infrastructure and a huge lack of security delivered on the ground in the Arctic. And I don't know, I'll ask you, are you familiar with the green hangar situation in Inuvik?
No, not the specifics of it, no.
Okay, well, let me explain. So the green hangar situation is the hangar that Canadian armed forces have used for the last decades to house our air-to-air refueling tanker when it's up to the 130. In 2021, this Liberal government, who talks a big game about security, deemed it no longer necessary. That hangar sits right now empty in Inuvik, and we're getting into the winter here. The snow's flying up there. And what that means by we don't have access to that hangar for our 130 to refuel our CF-18s. And what that means is at minus 40 conditions, it takes at least 2 to 3 hours to even get that air-to-air refueling tanker up to speed. So any kind of quick response is really off the table. And I guess if you don't know, if you're not familiar with it, I challenge you to look up a little bit about it. Currently, that NORAD asset that's key in the north, as we know, Inuvik is the key NORAD base in the Arctic. It's up for sale, and we've had some interested buyers look at it, namely the Chinese and the Americans. So I guess my question to you, how can Canadians believe anything this government says around what it's doing to support Arctic security? We see promises from this government, but very little delivered. Please respond.
Well, I'm not going to get into any partisan politics, but what I would point out is that we have to be very careful how we define a threat from Russia. If we say that is there a threat that Russia would massively invade the Canadian North, that is not what is likely to happen. But we need to take a nuanced approach to it, and this is what's really essential. That in so many ways, Russia presents a spectrum of threats. And this is why we have to have a response capability and one that is effective and which does not present Canada as a soft or as a tempting target. Those were the last parts of what I was going to make in my presentation. Let me give you an example. Russia is claiming sovereignty over the waters above the Lomonosov and the Mendeleev Ridge. This would cover an area of about 1.2 million square kilometers of the Arctic. What if they acted unilaterally? What do we do about that? Navigation through the Northern Sea route is becoming more possible with climate change. How would that impinge on Canadian sovereignty?
Sir Braun, I only have a few minutes left, so I'll ask you another question. I'm very familiar with the combating sovereignty claims around the seabed as well. Russia has made a claim for our Arctic seabed, what we deem as ours, and you talked about it before, even environmentally. We need to be able to assert ourselves. So if Putin decides to set up a drilling rig 200 nautical miles off our shores, we need to be able to act and do so decisively. And I understand what you're saying about maybe you don't think it's a threat. They're currently invading a country right now. This is from a source on the ground. Our weather is changing rapidly as a precursor to the fall rains and fogs are starting. At present, the most critical NORAD base in Canada, it does not have any hangarage, parking, C-130 air-to-air refuelers. The A310 AAR air-to-air refueler cannot land in Inuvik. The C-295 SAR is not operational. Insufficient fuel. As of yesterday, 4 airports in Nunavut, one of which is Resolute Bay, a regional hub, is short of aviation fuel. This hardly sounds like the lead NORAD base in Canada, or so our Minister of NAN would reassure us. I've asked her questions in the House about this before. She says it's all great in the north. Does that sound like it's that Inuvik's ready for any kind of response in the north?
Unfortunately, Canada has neglected its hard power for quite some time now. And given the geopolitics today, we can ill afford to do that. So whether we're looking at general issues or specifics that you have mentioned, all of those need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed pretty urgently, because as much as soft power is important, soft power operates together with hard power. And Russia is an aggressive dictatorship, and it is backed up by China, and China has become increasingly interested in the Arctic. They want to make sure there's maximum extraction, maximum amount of control by Russia with the help of China. China has talked about a polar Silk Road, and we therefore have to confront that reality. And as much as I would like to have spending shifted as much as we could to education and healthcare, we have little choice but to have a military capacity that is effective and credible.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Braun. All I would add is that, we think of this as a threat, and we're here in Ottawa. It's even more profound of a threat if you actually live in the Arctic. So thank you.